Okay, so let's get started. So hello and welcome. My name is Delvin Joyce. I am the chair for NAFA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, and we've got an amazing program for you today. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items for you. Everyone is on mute and listen only mode. But if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We're probably not going to have time for questions today, but here's the good news. The four amazing ladies that are here today are going to come back for NAFA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Impact Week on April 6th through the 8th. So we're going to build our program for that session around the questions that you put into the chat today. So I promise you we're going to get there. Now let me introduce our moderator today. So today's discussion, why our industry needs more African-American females, will be led by none other than Kristen Hall-Eskew. Kristen is a business development executive with Win Digital, one of the nation's leading group benefits providers. She also has a heart and a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's also been described as Oprah, Beyonce, and Michelle Obama all rolled into one. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to introduce the rest of our amazing panel.
Delvin, thank you so much for the best intro I've ever had. NAFA, thank you for having me. I am so excited and honored to be moderating today's discussion. You know, I think that we're all seeing Black women do some pretty amazing things, from the White House to the arts, sports, medicine, right? So many areas. And today we'll get to learn how these amazing ladies are trailblazing within the world of finance. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our panel. First up, we have Karen Holloway. Hi, Karen. Karen is from Montego Bay, Jamaica. She joined Northwestern Mutual in 2003 as a college intern and graduated from Florida Atlantic University with a BA in finance. She is driven to lead her clients toward their financial goals and comes from a banking background, making her ready to provide solutions for business owners, entrepreneurs, attorneys, and doctors facing unique financial challenges. When not goal planning, Karen can be found having fun with her husband and their dogs in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you for joining us today. Next up, we have Mary Kay Green. Mary began her career with Prudential in November of 2008 with the Chicagoland Financial Group. She had a fast start and was named Rookie of the Year in 2009, and in 2010, she was Sophomore of the Year and ranked as one of the top 10 financial professionals in the entire Chicagoland firm. In addition, Mary is qualified as a member of the $1 Million Roundtable 3 times, one of them being just last year. You go, girl. She's promoted to manager in 2012, and that year she earned a President's Citation, ranking as number 13 in the country, and then in number 30 in 2013. Both years she earned recognition as Leaders Council with MFS Signature Services. Outside of the office, Mary has been a mentor to students throughout the Chicago Public School District. She's currently the marketing instructor at Joseph Business School, and she's happily married and the mother of 2 daughters, a stepdaughter, and has two grandchildren. That's a lot, Mary. I don't know how you have free time. Last but definitely not least, we have Martina Jimenez Ferry. Martina, the proud Dominican-born wealth manager, has 25 years of experience in the financial service industry. She graduated from UGA in 1994 and began her career in banking. Eventually, she left to become a fee-based financial advisor at a leading national firm. There, she was promoted to market management field director and advanced her way up the corporate ladder to become a partner. After being in this role for almost 3 years, Martina was sought out by a global leading firm to take on a new role as Associate Managing Director, a position held only by 6 other women at the time. Let me give you another you go, girl. She's extremely passionate about incorporating intercultural development into the field and readily emphasizes the importance of diversity amongst clients and advisors alike. She recently realized her vision by founding Centurio Wealth LLC, a wealth management firm in Metro Atlanta. Martina is a member of NAFA, whoop, whoop, WIPS, and so many other amazing organizations. I don't know how she has free time, but outside of the office, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Chris, and their 4 children, listening to music, art, photography, and traveling. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. So let's jump into it. I know we have a lot of exciting things to discuss. So you're all these uniquely Black women that found your way into the industry in different ways. Mary, you had an entire other career before entering the industry, working in middle and senior level executive roles at Fortune 500 companies. Can you please share with us your career journey?
Oh, sure. And thank you for that great introduction, Kristen. But I was a job changer. As Kristen had indicated, I had been I worked for two really large Fortune 500 companies prior to me becoming a financial advisor with Prudential back in 2008. And I just remember when I came into the firm, the things that I remember about coming into the career and why I wanted to come in was one, I wanted to make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve in our communities. And I also wanted to be able to give back and bring resources into the community as well. And so my journey, kind of started out like I had my insurance license and didn't exactly, know what company or where my journey was going to take me. I just knew I wanted to be in this industry. And so as a result of that, I worked for a small company initially and then decided to look outside that company because my clients needed more than what they could provide. And so put my resume out, interviewed with several different companies, ended up at Prudential, and that has been my career ever since. I've been there, just been with one firm. And the reason why I chose them was because one, name recognition is really big when you're coming into the industry, especially if you have no experience. Second thing, their training program, of course, is great. So third thing is I loved my manager, my managing director. I just knew that they were going to give me some really great support, which I think is very important when you are new and coming into the industry. And then lastly, I just thought that I could just flourish, and just really bring some great things to the clients because of the needs of the African American community.
Thank you, Mary. As a former recruiter, we were always trying to figure out where to find career changers. So I'm sure my fellow recruiters will appreciate that story. Okay, so Martina, you and I actually entered the industry in a similar way in an adjacent industry. So that was banking. Can you please tell us your career evolution and sort of the why behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I am excited to be on this panel with everybody and share the story. As you said, we started in banking, and I never expected to feel this much responsibility in helping people become financially literate when I got into this industry. I actually, thought it was going to be a great job with great benefits, but what I found was so much, need for financial education in our communities, in the minority communities, where this is a time where women were still using their husband's name to describe themselves, like Mrs. John Doe. And this is also a time where, at least in Georgia, here in Atlanta, we had a lot of Hispanics who were here as immigrants, and they couldn't actually go to the cash machine and take money out because it was all in English, and I was helping them in getting money out of the bank through the cash machine and translating for them. And this is a time where I saw a lot of business owners who were growing and being successful, but they didn't know where to invest their money. So, this is where it all began. I got my calling from that day, and that's when it began to be my purpose-driven career. And I took on that challenge that has been in my life and part of my intentionality for the last 25 years.
It's amazing. Karen, unlike the other ladies, you entered this business while still in college, and you've actually been working for the same company your entire career. So, what led you to financial planning, and what has kept you in it?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Kristen. So I'm from Montego Bay, Jamaica, small little island. And I remember being in the sixth grade and two ladies walked in from Nova Scotia Bank. And when they walked in, I was like, man, I love the way they carry themselves. And then they ended up talking about compounding interest and how money grows. And I'm like, yes, I love the way they carry themselves. I love the way how they explain money. And if that's the way money grows, then I need to start be doing that. So a couple of years later, came to America and I studied finance in school. And while I was studying there, jobs were so easy to get here. So I was like, you know what, let me not get one job, let me not get two jobs, let's get three jobs while going to college full time. So while I was in college, I worked at the bank in banking as well. And I work at a jewelry store. So when I was working at the jewelry store, this guy walked in and he was like, wow, I love the way that you sold this diamond to me. And I think you'll be a great financial planner. And I was like, okay. And then at the same time, I got a call from Northwestern Mutual to come in and do an interview because part of my college degree, we had to prepare a resume and put it online. I ended up getting a call from them to come in and do an interview, and the rest is history. I've been there ever since.
Okay. Now, how old were you when those people came into your school?
13. No.
Like compound interest, okay?
Yes.
Okay, ladies, thank you for that. So you all came in these different ways, but there was one common theme that you guys spoke about when we were, preparing for this, and that's the effect that allyship has had on your career trajectory as Black women in financial planning. And so I want to delve into that a little bit. So Mary, you told me one of the main reasons your career had such a fast start, right? Your rookie of the year, sophomore of the year, is because someone stepped up as an ally. Can you share with us what that allyship looked like?
Sure. I probably had two allies, two amazing allies, I would call them. And the first one was my first contact in the business was a manager, a gentleman by the name of Glenn Kasiba. So he was my first and only manager that I had in the business. And what I loved about Glenn was that he was always supportive. He taught me from the business from the ground up, to how do you talk to clients, fact finding, following and having processes, and building relationships with client. And then we used to do what we call case based. So we would go and see clients, do a really good, fact finder on them, come back, talk about the clients, the needs, how do we felt about it? What are the recommendations? Here's how we're going to present based upon their needs. And so I really, really love that. So he really gave me really the confidence to do this business. And he just gave me like wings to just fly. And that's what I did. And then the other person was my managing director. And so when I met, his name is Jeff Martinath. And so Jeff has also been my managing director my entire career. But very supportive again, whatever I needed, the sky was always the limit. And I remember that they would always meet with me on a regular basis. Even Jeff would meet like on a quarterly basis. Okay, what are your goals? How can we help you? Support. And even now, that I'm back into the role again, he still reaches out to me and just asks me, what are my needs? How I'm feeling? Whether it's a touch point, it could be a text, it could be a phone call. And then Glenn, he is no longer in the business, but he had so much confidence in me that he allowed me to be his financial advisor for his Prudential, policies and things that he has in our business right now. And we have a great relationship. He came to my wedding. I still, talk to him, Christmas cards, we text, we get together. So I love the fact that he just became that wind beneath my wings and then just pushed me out, and he saw the potential that I had to be really great in this business. So I appreciate that.
That's great. I think you touch on a good point, which is that allyship, that relationship is not fleeting, right? True allyship lasts forever.
Lasts forever.
So Karen, one of the things that I think all new advisors can relate to, but especially those that identify as being the only, which I know you were the only Black female at the beginning of your career and at your current firm, is this lack of confidence. And allyship showed up for you. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So here I was in an office where everyone was just talking about wealth. And I would have opportunities to go out one-on-one with clients and just talk to them about their financial needs. Well, there were some circumstances that I was like, oh, I want to go by myself, or I don't know if I the right words to say, you know, how Mary just went through that thorough process that she takes clients through. I was like, I didn't know any of that. So I reached out. So I would be there in my office, and the men, the women, they were all older than me. And I was sitting there and I would admire them so much. But one thing they did every day, they would sit there, they would hear me in the offices next door to them. And then after a call, they would walk into my office and they were like, Karen, you are great. You would be good at this business. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you going out and do client facing? Because when I started there, I was more behind the scenes and I was very nervous to go on appointments by myself. So in our office, it's called like joint work. But when we will go, the questions that I would ask, they'll come back out and they were always encouraging, always telling me things that I could do or grow or knowledge to read, or Karen, I ordered this book. I think this book would be great for you, whether it was Energy Boss or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whatever books there could be, they would either buy it for me. Some of the women in our office would invite me to lunch one-on-one and just talk to me to hear how I could tap into bigger networks or more affluent families, or break into networks that I wasn't familiar with. So that is still big. And like Mary said, even till this day, there are people that I could call within our network, whether they be in California, New York, and I'm in Florida. They're all, I know I can easily pick the phone up and they'll be more than happy to help me with anything that I need. And I'm truly blessed for that.
That is a blessing. And you touched on some of the specific ways that allyship showed up for you. And Martina, I would love for you to sort of build on that. You know, I know allyship is a big part of your walk. You've had them, you are an ally to many people. And I'm sure that many folks on the line are wondering, okay, so how can I be a good ally? What advice do you have for them?
Well, my experience has taught me that what makes a good ally is someone who gets in the trenches, willing to help, and is intentionally working to unite and build strong relationships across our industry with partners, and especially internally, right, with our colleagues. An ally is someone who feels responsible to learn more about other cultures, other people's background, is focused on being inclusive, and wants to make a way for others to climb. I think that that's a big part of it. You know, when we hear Mary's story and Karen's story, we see that they had people who helped them and lifted them to be who they are today. So, you know, to live those who have been forgotten or left behind is part of that allyship. To empower people who may not see a way forward. We have, you know, people in our industry who have been forgotten or just don't have someone there in their corner. And, you know, we need people to support those individuals. You may not know how to get them to be, you know, where they've never been before, but you can just start by having a conversation, by reaching out, and, you know, just showing people the ability to go up, right, to have the opportunity for mobility. And an ally is a sponsor to others and stands up for non-allies. I think that that's a very important piece of this. An ally is a friend without borders, basically.
That's a good way to put it, a friend without borders. All right, ladies, now that everyone has an understanding of sort of how you got to where you are, I want to get into what I think is the meat and potatoes of this conversation. So let's switch gears a little bit. So American College just put out this really interesting article, and I think it's extremely relevant to what we're talking about today. So in the article, they're talking about how Black women are showing up in our community today. So they say, and I'm kind of quoting here, they said that women in the Black household, women are the primary breadwinners in 63% of Black households, and that they make up 68% of Black baccalaureate holders. I had to practice saying that, I'm not gonna lie. So when I read this, for me, it really reiterated something that I already know, right? That Black women are smart, that they're capable, and that they've built fruitful careers for themselves. And so I want to talk about how this shows up in your practices. So Mary, 80% of your book is Black. How do you see these statistics represent themselves?
They represent themselves fairly close, because a lot of my clients, you know, are African American females. Some of them are widowed, some of them are single, and some of them are married. and some of them are divorced. So when I look at the statistics, they're very highly educated women. They earn a very good income. And in addition to that, they also have assets. And they want to be educated on how they can continue to grow those assets. I think I mentioned to you about the story of the two teachers, and I had two sisters that are teachers. And I would be willing to bet I think between the two of them, they're probably worth about, $2 or $3 million. And they accumulated all of their assets while working as teachers. So they have great pensions. They were good savers. They have bought properties. And so when I met one sister and got to know her, then, did a lot of planning and getting her together. Then one day out of the blue, the other sister calls me up and said, whatever you did for my sister, I want you to do for me. So I met with her, forged a relationship with her as well. And then this past summer, the third sister called me up as well. Everybody, she said, Maxine Vera, I always talk about you. So, here's, so I'm next, And then to make a long story short, I met the mother, and she passed away. So this past year, so we're doing some estate planning now with an attorney that I use, and I have met the other three siblings as well. So I told them we like family now. There's no way of getting rid of me, but I will tell you that if you're not tapping into the African American female population as clients, you're just missing out on a whole different market that's very lucrative. I think of myself as well. I was single for 20 years before I got married again. And I had two moms, two girls. I was, making a lot of money as a single mom. And we had a really great life. But I don't think any advisor ever approached me about doing any type of financial planning. And so they were missing out on someone who probably, I was a good saver. I have money to invest. I built one house, I turned around, built another house, had saved for retirement. So I was, thinking I'm doing all the right things. But I wish somebody had to talk to me, earlier on about, how to do financial planning and take me down the road a little further. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for saying that, Mary. I can't tell you how many times I've heard other advisors with a lot of Black clients say that their clients said, well, no one's ever asked me before. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yep.
Martina, and part of your story, you were sharing some things that I think really correlates with this article as well. You said it's not that Black and brown people don't have money, it's that they don't have access to financial education. So what are some of the tools and tactics that you used to help that lack of accessibility?
Well, it's access, right? I mean, you heard Mary's story. She was doing all the right things, and she was a successful female, single mother, and had been investing, but no one talked to her. And this is, the unique challenge is that it seems like financial education is very exclusive. When you think about the products that we offer, like investment advisory services or comprehensive financial planning, they typically were, I would say, the type of services that were offered to non-minorities. So how do you get access to that? How do you know that there are ways to build on your investments by diversifying them, or thinking about tax efficient portfolios? Where do you get this information if someone doesn't teach it to you? So I think what we have is a lack of access. And for me, it's about making sure that as a firm, we are building an inclusive culture, not only internally, but externally. When we're doing, our client acquisitions, we need to make sure that we're serving our diverse market in the communities that we serve. And we need to make sure that we give people access to build wealth by providing them with the appropriate education. And I think that, it's easy to do based on the tools and resources that you have in your firm. You just have to look for those things that give you, the opportunity to serve people, mean, we are in a unique industry where we get the choice to not have minimums, right? A lot of services are offered with very little minimums or no minimums. So really, it's about us making it something that we care about, making it a priority, and my vision is to create wealth for all and eliminate financial illiteracy. I know that we're not going to all have the same amount of wealth, but we can create wealth at our own levels if we get access to the financial education. And, the first thing that I think we have to do in firms is make it a priority to have a diverse team to represent the community, right? That we serve, actively recruit diverse markets. Like that needs to be an intentional part of the, plan that a firm has. And then once those advisors get there, make sure that you create an inclusive culture for them and provide resources for them to go out in the community and brand and represent themselves so that they are able to have a backup, right? I mean, I go back to Mary's story, not only because I know it from knowing her for so long, but she actually had that support, right? And she found a firm that really catered to her needs. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So, part of this is when you're looking for diverse talent, be there, support them, and provide that platform that prepares advisors with training, resources, development, and mentorship. Like, Karen also said she had, which is important.
Very well said, Martina. So one of the things that I think, Martina, you and Mary both touched on at the beginning of this conversation is sort of this upward mobility that we're seeing within the Black community. And Karen, you've seen this affect your book of business or your clientele, directly. Can you talk to me a little bit about the change that you've seen in your client base from the beginning of your career until now, and why you think that is?
So when I started out, I would do what the other successful advisors in my office would do. I would go where they went to network because that's what was working. So I wasn't there to change the way that was working. And one of the things that they were very big on was networking, and they were networking at clubhouses or golf clubs. And so I would start attending these networking events. And most of them were business owners, but they were predominantly white business owners. I would attend them and I would do my networking. So in the beginning, most of my clients did not look like me, but it still worked because I was still giving them a very thorough process. And then I would ask for referrals, but they would refer me to who they knew and who were in their circle. Then as I started to get one referral from one to another, last year and the last couple of years, I'm having more and more referrals to more female Black advisors. So as a Black advisor, now that I'm seeing one, because I'm showing up where they are, so the networking events that I used to go to, so I believe if I'm going to where they are, which Mary's saying there's so many of us out there, when she went through those profile and the demographics, I'm one of them. So if I'm going where those women are and I'm asking them, who are some successful women I should be speaking to? If I went to Martina, she will definitely refer me to Mary. But if I'm not asking those, I'm not going to get access. So access works both ways. I'm making myself accessible by going where these women are located, where they're networking. They may not be at the country clubs right now, or they may not be at other, but they're civically oriented. So they're attending charity related organizations. So the more that I started to go there and serve on those organizations, I started meeting other amazing Black female advisors that looked like me, who had same financial goals. And then when I started asking them for referrals, they started to introduce me to other women who looked like them. And then from there, now I'm seeing where most of my clients were 80% white. Now it's more 50-50 because I'm being introduced, and out of sight, out of mind, because I'm showing up in those communities now, I'm being referred to more and more women who look or may share the same experiences that I have shared. So that's how I've seen that change or transition over the years.
That's great. So what I'm glad. So I think we made it clear that Black women make great clients if you can get in front of them. But I want to talk about something that might be a little difficult to talk about, but I think it's important. So NerdWallet put out an article recently that I want to reference, and it was called Discriminatory Practices Leave Black Americans with Less Life Insurance. And basically, the article was talking about sort of the historical reasons why we sometimes see this distrust between the Black community and the insurance world. And so in the article, they're talking about things like how right after the Civil War, former slaves were classified as higher mortality risk, and that would make life insurance more expensive for them, or maybe they would just get denied altogether. And they sort of go through this whole historical spectrum into the 60s. And then they're referencing how, you know, insurers had separate rates for Black and white applicants, or how some of them would come up with unique ways to not pay out claims. Yeah, redlining, just so many things were part of this article. And I think that we kind of need to talk about this. So Karen, when I read this, kind of tagging on to what you just shared, it made me think of a conversation that we had around some of the joint work that you do. And I'd like to know, how do you see this distrust show up in your practice?
So going back to joint work, whenever there are some cases that I may feel like there's an expert in our office on it, for example, if I were to get referred to Mary, and what happened was I got referred to Mary from a friend, and then I brought another advisor from my office who did not look like me. So we were all three meeting, and I'm like, okay, this is going great. Mary has a lot in common with my colleague who is white. We're going to call him Harry. And I'm like, they have a lot in common. They're sharing that they do the same activities, and all this is going on in meeting one. Now, when I finish the meeting, I get a call from Mary, saying, Karen, please do not bring Harry back to the meeting ever again. I just want to talk to you. I don't want Harry in the conversation. I don't want to work with Harry. I just want to work with you only. Do not bring him back to the meeting. And so that's, to your point, that's what happened in those meetings, and clients are getting more specific of asking who they want to work with, because there is a distrust thinking that Harry may not have her best interests at heart because of some of the points that you just mentioned.
You know, one of the things you said when you originally told me this story is that this client, and this happened more than once, by the way.
Yes.
But one of your clients said, I left a Harry.
Yeah. I don't want a Harry. Yes. Woman. Yes. Yes.
So I mentioned this is a difficult conversation. It can sound exclusionary. Look, this is not monolithic, right? Not all Black people feel like they can only work with a Black advisor, and the same to be said about other cultures. But again, I do think that there is something here. And so with that, Mary, I'd like to ask you, how can non-Black advisors who do want to have more Black female clients, or just Black and brown clients in general, make themselves more marketable to our community?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to, learn about the community that you're going to be coming into. That's the first thing. Do some research, find out what are the things that are important to us. What are some of the things that we're focusing on as a community, and really just learn more about the culture and how we, as I say, operate and how we exist. And then the second thing of it is too, in the way you can learn about it, you can ask your coworkers who are from that particular culture, from the African American culture, for advice. Other thing is do joint work, do joint work with an African American advisor. When I first started, I did a lot of joint work, and I was usually the person that was being asked to do the joint work, whether it's with a Caucasian gentleman, or whether it was from, a Caucasian female. And even as a manager, sometimes they would ask me, hey, can you talk to this particular candidate? And even when I wasn't a manager, they would ask me to talk to an African-American candidate and say, can you just, give her a perspective on, working in this particular industry? And the next thing that I would say is go where the people are. You might stick out like a sore thumb, in some sense of the word, or you might feel like you're a fish out of water. but go to some of the meetings, go to some of the African American chamber meetings, go to some of the different events that are happening, in the community, like the Urban League or, the NAACP events, or even some of the faith-based community events. Go to those and support them, support the community, let them know you're there, let them know you care about the community, and they will begin to now reach back out, to you as well. But I think that you got to start with the research first, form some alliances in the community, bring resources into the community, and then they'll reach back out to you as well.
That's great. I think it's being a resource and just, I'm going to be real layman's terms here. We're just kicking it, right? Like just learning the culture and feeling the vibe.
Yes.
So absolutely. So Martina, let's switch to you. Earlier you talked about how companies need to make diverse recruiting a part of their strategy, but I think there's a fine line between just hiring people of color, right, and checking a box and being prepared for that. And so one of my most, the most exciting things about our conversation was sort of these token offers that you referenced that you've received throughout your career, where you felt like companies were giving you these offers simply to check that box and that they were disingenuous. So what advice do you have for companies or people of leadership to avoid that feeling of tokenism?
Well, it's really simple. You really have to have a leader-led, right, strategic plan. You can't just have people being hired into a firm without having an actual strategic plan. When you bring on an advisor, it affects their lives and the people that they are responsible for. It also, goes into the community because they're representing, themselves in that role and also your company. So you really have to put money into this. You have to know that you can't just hire someone. They're going to need support to brand and market themselves in the community. Like you said, the Urban League, there's so many organizations, the NAACP, the National Black MBA. Like you have to become part of these organizations and want to not just give money, but also be like literally part of it, right? And it needs to be something that is monitored. It can't just be up to, I think, firms to hire whoever they want to. I think it should be a requirement that firms have a responsibility to recruit diverse talent and to have a strategic plan for that talent that is coming on board, to create an inclusive culture. And it also means that when they bring someone on, they should be completely honest about what they do have and what they don't have. If you really are the first one, that gets hired, you should know you are literally the first one. We have nothing here. We need your help to, guide us and to help us get into this market, because we truly want to authentically come into the market, but we just don't know how. And so we want to pour all this love and support onto you so you can help us lift somebody else. I think if you just have that candid conversation with the advisor or the leader, to know that, where you stand as a firm and what is there and what is not, and make it clear, put it in the contract. I think that that's important, because then, you avoid a lot of, issues later, right? Where someone is unhappy, they're not getting what they thought they were getting, they're not getting the support that they needed, they're not being mentored appropriately, there is no funding to do what really needs to be done to support this community. And we just have to be upfront, honest and direct with the candidates. And also, before they sign on the dotted line, let them know what is the support that is there and available for them. And I'm very lucky, I think, that I had firms who told me up front that they were not going to be able to support these initiatives, but they wanted me. So I am grateful that they decided to give me that information, because it allowed me to make a decision to not go to those firms, right? And that's a good thing, be upfront.
Transparency, candid conversations. I totally agree. That is absolutely key. Now I'm curious, for our young Black female listeners or just, minority listeners, what questions can they ask throughout the interview process to make sure that they're actually going to be invested in and supported and that they aren't just checking a box?
Yeah, and I think that this is for anyone who is interviewing. You have to interview the company, right? I mean, we can't just be interviewed. We have to also interview the company that we're about to, get married to, right? We need to ask hard questions about, the support that is there, the leaders that are going to be supporting you, and I think it's okay to say, have you ever worked with a Black advisor? Have you ever hired anyone who's Black in this firm? And look around. I mean, if there are no people of color in this firm, you need to ask the hard questions about, am I the only one, or will I be amongst other? Who will support me? If I need to go to a meeting to sit with a Black couple at their home, will you go with me? How uncomfortable or comfortable will you feel if you go to a networking event at the 100 Black Men, association? I mean, you just have to ask, because sometimes people don't feel like they can do those things, and it's okay. You just need to know up front. But the most important thing is to not be afraid to ask those hard questions. Think of it as a long-term relationship that you really need to get to the bottom of, to figure out if this is a good match. And if it is, you got to ask the hard questions. And I hope that firms feel like this is a good thing, because it lets them also realize, I'm not ready for this.
I agree. I think the elephant is already in the room when you're in an interview process at a predominantly white firm, whether it's spoken of or not, because I've experienced this. You see the people around you. And so somebody has to be able to address it. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
So kind of on this topic of leadership and attracting Black talent, Black females, people of color, Mary, you are in a position of leadership. You built great teams, and your team is predominantly African American. Mm-hmm. How did you build this team, and where did you find them?
Well, it's a couple of ways. One, it started out with, I inherited a couple of African American advisors in the office, so that was great. One of the gentlemen I initially inherited, him and I had been doing joint work together. So I knew who he was, and he knew me, and he wanted to, come and be on my team. But the second way was that I had some really good centers of influences that really introduced me to some really great African-American, candidates. And I interviewed with them. I usually tell people, what my story was, what my journey was, how much support, that I received, and how I was going to support them. And also, too, I had a good track record of success. So I shared with them that I kind of knew and understood, where they were starting from, and that I would help get them from like point A to point B if they just trusted me. And so a lot of the people that I hired, they were like warm source people. They were from people that referred other individuals to me. And then based upon that referral, then I was able to establish that trust and then take it on to the next level. But yeah, I had a team of really great team. My first year that we won citation, we finished number 13 in the company. And I think on my team of 9 individuals, I think either 7 out of the 9 or either 8 out of the 9 were African Americans. And many of them all had college degrees or better. And some of the things that I looked for was coachability was one big thing, because if you're coachable, I can teach you the business and I can get you where you want to get to. The second thing was that they have great networks. Could they tap into the people that they knew? And then the other thing was, how did they feel about being on a team and working together and being able to share and do some great things? So our team, we did very, very well. My first year as a manager. And I think I was only a manager for probably about maybe 8 months out of that first year that we finished so high. So you got to work your networks. You know, African American women are great at networking. We know good people that look like us, that behave like us. So tap into some of those great networks that are out there.
It's great advice, Mary. Now, Martina, you're managing partner, right? You just started your own firm. You're a person of influence and leadership. Could you kind of quickly tell us, you know, have you found that there are challenges that are unique to the Black and Brown advisors, Black female advisors, and how or what have you done to help combat those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you first come in, the obvious thing is that there are not that many of you, right? So sometimes you don't come from the background of finance or having done this work before, and you may feel like, you know, you don't belong because you don't have that expertise or the knowledge. And, you know, again, not to repeat what I said earlier, but it's really just to make sure that the firm is ready to receive you, right? And that they are prepared to help you become prepared and to become knowledgeable and appropriately licensed and getting you the resources that you need. Although not all minorities or people of color speak different languages, there is a way to market to certain communities. So I think you need to have those special marketing tools that are necessary. You know, it could be something as simple as, you know, you're describing, let's just say life insurance as an example, or even a retirement plan. And you know, the picture on the brochure is a white couple. And then the other picture on the brochure is another white family. You know, just by making it look like this also is inclusive to other, you know, people of the universe that look like our community. You want to have the type of, I would say, assets in your marketing tool that represent the community as a whole. That's a big one, you know, and people notice that, right? I mean, Karen, you were talking about that one client. People notice when they look at a brochure and there are no Black or brown people or Asian people in it. And when they do see it, they actually comment on it. They say, wow, I've never seen this before, you know, and they are happy to see it. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel represented, or, you know, that this company went out of their way to market to this group. You know, we need to do more, I would say, study to learn that community, right? What are the issues that particular community faces with financial, you know, planning, in saving or managing debt or building wealth, and really be authentic about the data that you collect. So when you go to, you know, partner with these local leaders in these areas, you can show how much, you know, your company has worked to try to do something about this, right? And so when we go into companies that don't have these type of tools, we face a very short run at this career. And, you know, we face jumping, right? Like from one firm to another firm to another firm, because you keep looking for the right fit and you haven't found the support system, that net that we need, that village. Because we all know on this panel and in this group that, and I'm sure people who are listening, that it takes a village. You cannot do this alone. So you really have to have the right mentors and support to get it done. And, you know, we have to find that. We need to, one thing that I would say to people who want to do this or are thinking about getting out or things are not going well, if you really want this, no matter what, you can make it work. You know, you can seek sponsors to support you outside of that firm that you're in. You can seek mentorship with other people, like from NAIFA as an example. This is why these, you know, type of events are so awesome, because you can, you know, you can reach out to Kristen or Karen or Mary or Delvin or me and say, I want to talk. I need help. How do I address this issue? You know, what do I do? It doesn't have to be someone from your office, especially if you're the only one female there and you don't have anybody to talk to. And, you know, being the only female sometimes is not just a black and brown thing. It's also a white female problem where it's only one, right? So I think as females, we need to come together and just support each other. It doesn't matter what your background is or the color of your skin. Let's support each other, because you know what? We have almost $40 trillion of money that we're going to be, handling pretty soon. And we have a very powerful outlook in this future, right? So let's join hands, literally, let's join hands, let's support each other. And when you see a sister from another mother, come into your firm, welcome her and ask if she needs help and how you can guide her. And it doesn't matter, who she is. I mean, there are so many people who need help in all of our communities. There's business that we can even catch, right? So let's just be supportive of each other and lift and help somebody else climb.
That's right. Hashtag sisterhood.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. I think we've done a pretty good job of addressing the topic at hand, but I'd like to conclude by more directly asking, so Karen, can you kind of quickly tell us, why do you think our industry needs more Black female advisors?
I think the easiest answer to that is because people want them. There's a demand for it. It's like real estate. If you build it, they'll come. And I think if we're seeing more and more of Black women, 63%, they're making money, they want advice too. They're looking for someone to give advice. So it's supply and demand. If they're demanding that, then the market should respond, to that need and get them in there. And I also feel like for many of my clients, there's families that I meet with that taking care of a parent is important to them. Like they are that long-term care plan for their parents. And that's a big need in African-American communities where everyone is more like, hey, we take care of the entire family. It's not mom is this age, she moves on, there's mom and dad there to take care of it. So there's needs that are greater need that there's an understanding there. And in every relationship, it's who you like, who you know, who you trust, right? So if the people that we're serving are demanding that, if they're looking for that one woman or that one, I want to make sure they're African American for whatever reason it may be, it's more for connection. I think that's why. And I think more importantly, as a Black advisor, there's so much independence. You get to take off when you want to. There are women in my office, but they work as administrative assistants. And if they need to go anywhere, they're like, hey, can I take time off to go to Tommy's basketball game or whatever it may be? When you're your own advisor, you're only asking yourself, can I take off for that? There's independence, there's raises that you get because you're running your own show. There's not this gender gap between, oh, this male makes more, this other person makes more than me. It's the work that I put in. I get rewarded for all the work, all the grind, all the grit that I give back to the company. So there's independence, there's income, there's just time that you get to make that I appreciate. And even when I'm planning with anyone, any family, whether they be Black or wherever they're from, their concern is more time with family. They want more raise. They want the ability to have more say. And I think this is an industry that affords you that ability. So that's one thing that's a blessing twofold.
Thank you, Karen. But Mary, what are some of the opportunities or doors that you think can only be opened by Black female advisors?
Well, I think one of the doors that can be open is the fact that we know a lot of people. We're very good at networking, and as Karen said too, we're very hardworking. We take care of families, and we care. So not only do we care about just our immediate family, but we care about our extended family, so we can introduce them to more individuals in our circle that trust us as well. And the other thing of it is that we belong to a lot of civic, social, and religious organizations. So we can also introduce them and introduce people to those organizations that we volunteer in and that we have personal connections with, and that we also care about, that have an impact on our community as well. So, I always will, I think about how we have changed, the African American community has changed over the years. And the African American female has one of the most dominant roles in our community right now, if you look at it. And we've used that role to change the trajectory of the lives of the people that are around us. So I'm not being biased or being a feminist, but I think all roads in the Black community leads to the Black female. And if you want to get into the Black community, you got to start connecting with these African American females out here, whether it's the teacher, or whether it's the minister, or whether it's the neighbor. But I think all roads lead to us.
That's right. All right, Martina, I'm going to let you close it out. Can you please tell us, how has being a Black female advisor allowed you to uniquely serve your clients?
Well, I think it's about connecting authentically. There are so many different markets that Black and brown females can connect with, and that just lends itself to being a natural, conversation, uniquely felt from, being a minority, right? Understanding as a female what you're going through, being a mom, right? Being a provider or the head of household. There is not only a great market for female Black advisors and brown advisors, but also for clients. And I know, at least in Georgia, most of the business owners are women-owned businesses. So this is a great market. And, anyone should be jumping on this and partnering with an advisor from this market so that they can work together.
That's great. Ladies, thank you. Delvin, I'll swing it back to you.
All right, fantastic. I mean, I know all you ladies. I've known you for years, and I am still fired up. I've heard your stories before, never quite heard them like I heard them today. So I really appreciate your authenticity, being so genuine, and sharing with our people. So we did get some questions. I don't think we're going to have time for Q&A, but I do want to remind everybody that this session was recorded and is available on demand in NAIFA's Talent Development Center. So it'll be there very soon. We should have had 100,000 people on this webinar listening to these amazing ladies. But if you had someone that wanted to be here but could not make it, please have them visit tdc.naifa.org under DEI initiatives to access this recording and previous DEI webinars. So, and also don't forget, these ladies will be back for our NAIFA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Impact Week, April 6th through the 8th. And we're going to open registration for this event very soon. So again, Kristen, Karen, Martina, Mary, thank you guys so much for inspiring us. And everybody have a great rest of the year.
Bye.
Thank you, NAIFA, for supporting.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Delvin, and thank you, Kristen, and everybody on the panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Fun.
My pleasure.